Okay, welcome to the Hack My Age Zoom webinar. This is a podcast interview that you are all welcome to witness, as well as on Clubhouse too. So if at any point you need to leave, feel free to pop out anytime, and you can always catch the rest of the interview on the Hack My Age podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So today we are so fortunate to meet someone who really wants to genetically engineer you, Liz Parrish. She is going to share her experience as the first human to undergo gene therapy, and she's going to break down the science on what it actually is. She will also clear a lot of our confusion on DNA testing, telomere testing, and all the other tests of biological aging that can help us slow down and even cure aging. Yeah, said cure. So Liz will also cover the topic of life extension and extension of healthy lifespans using gene therapy. These therapies have been proven successful in animal trials, and now she's committed to giving them to aging humans to treat the diseases of aging and working diligently to speed up FDA approval of cutting-edge gene therapies for even more human patients. Liz Parrish is the founder and CEO of BioViva. This is a company committed to extending healthy lifespans using cell technologies. And she is also a humanitarian, entrepreneur, an innovator, podcaster, and a leading voice for genetic cures. As a strong proponent of progress in education for the advancement of regenerative medicine modalities, she serves as a motivational speaker to the public at large for the life sciences. She is actively involved in international education media outreach too. So I was so lucky to meet Liz Parrish through the good luck of my friends Andres and Magdalena, who are also here.
Hello.
Yeah, great to have you here. And you guys are also super strong advocates for longevity and healthy aging, and they're here to support us and answer any of your questions along with Liz. Thank you so much for making this connection for all of us. So without further ado, welcome, Liz.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And of course, I'm happy to know these two wonderful people who introduced us. They are big spreaders of information for the general public, and companies like ours cannot do our job without people talking about, you know, what's actually happening in science and translating and making that bridge to people who should be interested if they're not.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. They're amazing, and we're still spreading the word. Really, I'm so excited to learn more about gene therapy and what you're doing. So, I know a lot of people, you know, may have a clue what it is, but a lot of people don't really know what it is. So I'd like you to explain what does it mean exactly, gene therapy, and what put you on this journey to even learn more about it yourself, because you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, but you know, you talk like one and you and you behave like one. So it would be super interesting to find out how you even got interested in this.
Yeah, so I'll try to make that story really short. From 2011 to 2013, I volunteered my time for the advocacy of the use of stem cells. So I learned a lot about regenerative medicine, but in 2013, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And long story short, I realized and found out that all of this really fantastic technology in regenerative medicine doesn't really translate to humans. A lot of it gets stuck in research. And so I went looking for cures for kids and trying to find out how to translate this medicine. Being in the stem cell area, you get pretty interested in genetics. So every cell in the body has the same genes in them, but why do cells behave differently? Why does your nose look like your nose and your toes look like your toes? And why do stem cells have the ability to regenerate, but other cells in your body don't? So I became really interested in genetics, and I got lucky enough to happen into a conference that was about aging. But it was also about genetics. And so that's why I went. And I learned about aging technology, the genes that are associated with aging bodies, how by looking at aging, we could actually cure childhood disease faster. And let me help you understand that. So there are genes associated with treating aging that can benefit childhood disease. And since working in children is considered unethical in many cases, unless the children are absolutely critically ill, we have over 100,000 people that die every day of aging that could help create these technologies, help test these technologies, and we could actually help everyone on the planet at the same time. So that's how I fell in love with genetics. I fell in love with the idea that by helping everyone, we could expedite cures to kids and revolutionize how we do medicine today.
So this is what prompted you to even investigate in that area. And so what happened after? I've listened to a lot of your podcasts before and interviews, and I'm always thinking about your son. You know, this is 2013. He was diagnosed with diabetes type 1. What did you eventually do with him, and how is he doing now? I hate to ask you this, like so off topic, but it's just really sitting on me, and I'd like to know what you did for him, and if the gene therapy is a part of this.
So gene therapy, so that's considered an autoimmune disorder. So gene therapy right now, we cannot directly affect autoimmune disorders. So right now he's using the best technology that he can for today. So he's got a blood glucose monitoring system, you know, that's injected into his arm. He's got a pump that's injected into his stomach. And we are watching trials that have to do with stem cells and genetics that will cure this disease. But autoimmune conditions are very fragile conditions because you don't want to exacerbate the situation. So in this case, you know, we're very supportive of the companies that are working and have spent decades working on a potential cure for type 1. That is probably something that it would take another decade or so for my company to be able to tackle, just because of the complexity of the situation. You think aging is complex, but adjusting the immune system is very complex, even more so for all of us. And that's something that we can talk about later in this conversation. But right now, the best course of action is to support companies who are on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of those technologies, and watch what they're doing. Yeah, so essentially we do the best that we can with the technology we have today, and we're supportive of the technology coming up in that area, because a lot of people are suffering from type 1 diabetes. It's actually on the rise with COVID-19, by the way. Oh,
that's interesting. I didn't know that. So that'll be interesting thing to watch, to see if there's any development in medicine that can help. But I'd like to know then, so how did you get involved with creating your company, or being the first human to go through gene therapy? And, you know, walk us through also at some point what it means to go through gene therapy. What do you do?
Right. So even though we're not working on a cure for type 1 diabetes right now, we are working on technology that will massively benefit my son's life and everyone else's life. And so how did we get on this route? So after I started looking into the genetics that were behind aging and the genetics that correlated with childhood disease, we found two targets that were the lowest hanging fruit in treating aging. And one was a gene therapy that lengthened your telomeres. Those are the ends of the chromosomes, and they shorten as you age. So your body has a finite amount of cellular divisions, and this gene therapy sort of busts that. So regardless of whether, you know, people are huge fans of lengthening telomeres, if you want to extend lifespan, you're going to have to do it. So it's going to be an integral part of any longevity therapy in the future, just regardless of what your end goals are, unless you want to live a short life and just live really healthy in that time. But really, you know, the biggest benefit is to extend health. So That gene therapy had not been used in humans. I was not, I should go back. I wasn't the first person to ever use gene therapy. There were gene therapy trials in the 90s and in humans, but I was the first person to use gene therapy to treat biological aging. And so that was one of the gene therapies that I used. And the other one was called Follistatin. It is a gene that codes for a protein that blocks something called myostatin that limits your muscle growth. So think of it as you do the gene therapy and you have the capacity to gain more muscle mass. And that is really beneficial for an aging population, as well as children with myopathies that have muscle degradation. They might have muscular dystrophies or close to those type of conditions. Telomerase is really potentially beneficial for kids with progeria, which is accelerated aging. In cell cultures, in progeric children's cells, it actually reverses the aging process. And if anyone hasn't looked into progeria, you know, these kids die young. They usually die in their teen years of the diseases that we die of when we're, you know, 80 or 90 years old.
So in progeria, if they did a gene therapy with the myostatin, then they would be able to live longer or just more quality life?
In progeria, they would want to do the telomerase inducing gene therapy, and the hypothesis is that it could reverse the aging in the cells and the effects of a protein called progerin on the telomeres and actually extend their healthy lifespan. And why that hasn't been expedited, I don't know. There's very few kids that actually suffer from progeria, but I'm not sure why somebody hasn't done that. There's been a lot of research and study around it.
Okay, that makes more sense then. For some reason, I thought it was the myostatin. So you chose these two because, as a starting point, because they were the low-hanging fruit. They were more accessible. They were just easier to administer, or there was a greater need.
Well, they had a lot of work already done around them. So anything that we look at in gene therapy has what's called a meta-analysis. It has to have been around for a while, and it has to have research done by multiple labs that are not associated with one another. So, you know, if you're looking at something that is going to be first in human use, you want as much data as you can possibly get. And so, you know, if we had a new gene today, you know, we've been hearing about genes that might be associated with aging. There was a gene that just was recently found in a mouse study in China. We wouldn't use that. It would need to go through, you know, rigorous testing through different labs, or at least preclinical work working towards human development. These genes, these two genes, both follistatin and the hTERT, the one that lengthens the telomeres, had you know over a decade of information on them, and the follistatin had already gone through safety and efficacy for muscular dystrophy, and it was not a cure for muscular dystrophy. It did increase muscle mass, but that is not the curative mechanism for many kids with muscular dystrophy, unfortunately.
So why is it not being investigated? Why can't, you know, if this gene therapy has already been proven in humans, is it just not enough for people to run with it and start administering this to children with progeria, or any other people who just want to extend their telomeres for one reason or another? Why?
So the follistatin has been through safety and efficacy, and why it's not being used in an aging population, I really think it comes down to ingenuity and finances. So you know, I mean, it actually, I'm shocked that, you know, somebody isn't running it in a clinical trial right now in the US for sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting with aging. As far as hTERT for lengthening the chromosomes, that's still really new technology. And I think that we're the first company that's gathering human data on what happens with that gene therapy.
Okay, that's super interesting. So also from our, you know, the other podcasts I've been listening to, I'm trying to learn more about gene therapy myself. it seems to be legal in some countries and illegal in others. Is that true?
Well, a technology is supposed to be regulated by any country before it's prescribed to humans. There are some gray areas where patients and doctors can, by consent, use a technology. Even in the United States, you can apply for an emergency IND to use it in the technology in a patient who's dying. That's just rather cumbersome. So many companies just work through medical tourism. They take people from one country who really want to access a technology, and they consent to access the technology to another country to participate in that technology.
Mm. Okay, so this is something that you really have to ask your doctor about if you're in this critical state. But what about somebody who just wants to, I would love to have more muscle mass, or obviously extend my telomeres, and I'm not in a disease state. So is that something that's doable?
Well, our company doesn't give gene therapy, but we work with a company called Integrative Health Systems. And what I can tell you is I do believe in agency and autonomy to do with your body what you wish to do with it. But those persons who were interested in that and who were not in a disease state would need to talk to a doctor. They would need to, the doctor would need to understand what exactly the goal that this patient had and whether or not they qualified for a treatment.
And is it something that's very expensive to do, or is it realistic for the general population?
Well, gene therapy is really expensive, and that's something that we have been working on. So gene therapy right now, of the 5 regulated gene therapies, they're the most expensive medicine in the world. And it doesn't have to be like that. So the reason that those treatments are so expensive is that they're treating monogenic diseases. A monogenic disease means a human was born with a single gene mutation. There's one gene defect. And there are in the case of the 5 past gene therapies, except for one of them that's for cancer, it's a pretty rare population. They're called orphan diseases. They affect, less than 1 in 12,000 people. So there's not a huge market for those therapies. And even though they're a one-time treatment for a potential lifetime cure, the market doesn't bear what the research and the whole progression through the regulatory system costs the drug maker. So when you're looking at something like biological aging, you're looking at scale. It's something that affects everyone on the planet, and I believe that it can be much more affordable. So we work with Integrative Health Systems so that they can give us data on how gene therapies are performing. And one of the fantastic things we've been able to do is work with nonprofits to fund studies in humans. So Integrative Health Systems worked with Maximum Life Foundation and funded 6 people to take gene therapy for dementia. So for some people, it might not cost very much in the cases that the technology can get funded. In other cases, it can be pretty cost prohibitive for most people. It could be around between just under $100,000 to $300,000 to participate in a gene therapy.
Okay, that's prohibitively expensive, and that's something that hopefully in the future will change, just like with any new technology. So it seems as though that's one of the biggest obstacles, as well as perhaps being accepted around the world and being more studied. So why aren't people studying this more than they are? Or am I wrong? They actually are.
Well, there are more companies now looking at gene therapy than ever. So let me put things into perspective. So if you'd use medical tourism to access a gene therapy today, let's say it's even upwards of $500,000. Let's put it into perspective of the gene therapies that are regulated through the market. A gene therapy that was most recently regulated for spinal muscular atrophy is between $2 and $5 million. So the difference is that medical tourism drives the cost down significantly. And then let's put that in perspective of other medicine as well. So if you wanted to have an open heart surgery here in the United States, it's over 157,000. But if you went to, let's say, India, it's 9,000, and actually you have a better chance of survival. So,
In India? Really?
You have to put in perspective that even though it's expensive, it's a lot less expensive than it is with a regulated drug. But hopefully we can even do better than that when we have regulated drugs in the US.
So why is the chances of survival greater in India if you were to do, say, for example, open heart surgery?
That's something that we're looking into. Is it better oversight? Is there more staff, looking over your records, ensuring a better outcome? Why is that? Why are some healthcare systems better than others? And, medical tourism has a lot of benefit to actually push towards being the best, right? To have the best outcome for patients is really a hallmark of getting people to participate. So it's probably maybe better oversight, maybe less red tape. It's a good question.
It could be interesting. I spent a lot of time in Thailand, and medical tourism is quite big there. So, and you get excellent service, really beautiful hospitals. And so the experience is quite nice, and people like to go there and get whatever it is that they're done, whether it's, something serious or something just aesthetic. They're kind of having a vacation as they go along. So in fact, the money, they still go home and save more money. So medical tourism, I think, is a huge industry that's growing, and that'll be interesting. Well, hopefully one day we will be more mobile and can do all these things. Can I ask you then, what prompted you to become the first person to undergo gene therapy for biological aging? And were you scared?
Well, it really talks to your next question of, how many companies are doing this, and is it getting funding, and why has this technology sat so long without movement? I know several companies that would like to, look at telomerase extending therapeutics, both in RNA and DNA type therapies, but I have no idea. We have reversed aging in animals. Scientists have, for over a decade with telomerase induction. We know species that are considered, partially immortal because they have it upregulated in their system. I think it's just, on a gross scale, it's just really bad decisions. And I guess it was a lucky thing for us to step in and have the opportunity to look at such a powerful technology and have it really have not been used in humans. So I think that it's funding, but I think that it's also gross oversights for genetic cures. And also, gene therapy was set back, by a couple of decades because there was a bad outcome in 1999. It started with a bang in 1990, treating severe combined immune deficiency with luck and having really good outcomes. And then in 1999, unfortunately, a boy named Jesse Gilsinger died of a gene therapy reaction, not to the gene, but to the vector that they used to use to deliver it. And it just set back the industry so far that people really stopped looking at it. So when I came in, I met Bill Andrews, and he talked to me about telomere extension and how it could actually help a myriad of childhood diseases and could help an aging population. I talked to him, well, how do you know that that's true? And he said, well, there's this gene therapy, and when we use the gene therapy, human cells get youthful by, every measure. And when it's been used in animals, this is what happens. And I said, well, then why hasn't it been used in a human? Why have we been sitting on this technology? And, he said, well, people are afraid to try it. And I said, well, I'm not afraid to try it, because if we don't try it, we die. And, I see my son, suffer with a chronic illness every day. And, my grandmothers had already died of dementia. I mean, if you have a rational mind, you can see where things are going. Today, maybe you're healthy, but in the future, I mean, what do humans do? They plan for the future. So I just felt like it was a mandate that somebody had to take that gene therapy. And I wanted to start a company around this. And I said, I don't want to lead to someone else getting sick from this technology, so I'll just take it myself. So Bill designed the gene therapy that I took for telomere extension. And then our doctor, who had already done a myostatin inhibitor, he had taken a gene therapy to increase muscle mass, suggested that I take that as well with the telomere extending gene therapy. And we looked at the synergistic effects. We studied it for about 1.5 years before I took it, and then we jumped.
That's amazing. I still am dumbfounded why more people are not jumping on board with this therapy and other human testing, because it's just like any kind of drug that you take, someone, there'll be enough animal models, and then eventually we have to go into humans. So it just happens with every single drug that's done. Like, why would it stop with this one and not with all the others? And we know that drugs are not always effective, and people are still putting themselves at risk by taking a drug. But okay, there's nothing else. This to me just seems like a no-brainer to keep moving forward, just like you would with any other therapy or drug.
Yeah, and even though so I think it's just like a tier of technology. So even though there are plenty of uses for nutraceuticals. Nutraceuticals are kind of like humans stepping in and using nature for their ailments. They find some bark and it starts to alleviate pain. And they find, something else and it increases blood flow, like curcumin or something like this. And that's one level. That's one level of humans stepping into medicine. And then you have the next level, which is pharmaceuticals. And these are small molecules that you vastly take in pill form. They have what's called side effects. And so some of the side effects might be things like lowering your LDL cholesterol. Other side effects of that same drug, called the statin, is increasing your risk of type 2 diabetes. 1 in 4 people who take them will get type 2 diabetes, and 1 in 10 will get dementia, because it probably isn't the best way to do things. And so the pharmaceutical companies are kind of king right now. They have a lot of money because they make a lot of money off of these drugs. And there's nothing wrong with that. They've helped people. They've harmed people. They've helped people. The number one point, though, is you will die taking those drugs. We are now stepping in with gene therapies, and pharmaceutical companies, some of them are buying gene therapies now because they can see the progression, the next step. And this is where we start treating things at the cellular level. This is the game changer. There's no more adverse side effects. The side effect is the upregulation of a protein. So genes code for proteins, and those proteins are everything about you. And we're now looking at genes that upregulate regeneration. So what is aging? Aging is cellular degeneration over time. Now we're looking at genes that upregulate the regeneration, and the hope is to upregulate it faster than the degeneration. So we look at the hallmarks of aging, which is telomere attrition, mitochondrial dysfunction, inter and extracellular communication signals, and senescent cells. And there's 10 hallmarks of aging, and we're looking at gene therapies that treat those. So in the future, you're not trying to treat something like dementia or heart disease or kidney failure. You're treating the hallmark that is driving those diseases. It's to create now therapeutics that keep us from degenerating to begin with. So a lot of people say, heart disease runs in my family, but everyone is getting kidney failure, for instance. That's just happens over time to everyone. By the time you're 65, you probably have 2 or 3 diseases of aging. Your doctor is probably at least treating one of them very hard with prescription medicine. And then you're probably taking prescription medicine that's treating the symptoms of those other prescription medicines you're taking. It's not uncommon for someone who's 60 to be taking 5 pills a day and somebody who's 70 to be taking over 12. They're still dying. So we're looking at technology that would essentially arrest that at the cellular level, and that your diseases of the future will be, okay, you're suffering from telomere attrition, we're going to give you a therapy for that. Or you're suffering from mitochondrial dysfunction or too many senescent cells, we're going to give you a therapy for that. So will there be a use for nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals along with the gene therapies? Absolutely. There's always going to be a place for those, but I believe that they will just become optimizing health. We'll just use the good ones for optimizing health as we solve the bigger problems at the genetic level.
So do you think it's not being explored and studied as much because they don't have the resources as big pharmaceutical companies that can make a lot of money off of this? Because it seems to me that gene therapy, you could still make a lot of money even if the prices come down. It seemed if I were a businessman or a woman thinking, okay, I want to make some money and I want to get into biotech, it's just to me seems like a fantastic field to get into because everyone needs it. We're all aging and we're all dying. So why, solve a lot of problems as well. Not only solving the problems of people who have Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all the other degenerative diseases, but also the people who just want to stay youthful. Like that's a whole other market, so I just see that there'd be actually tons of money in here. So I don't know why there's not enough funding and not enough research. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, that's a good question because, staying youthful is actually the most money saving thing that any country could do is help their people stay youthful. Each one of the aging diseases is a $1 trillion disease, either locally, nationally, or globally. So we spend a lot of money on people being sick. Healthy people lose a lot of work time and a lot of their money taking care of sick people. So I think that, so we see more and more pharmaceutical companies starting to buy up gene therapy companies because they do know that it is the next level. But if you look at it and you're asking why, why do we not have clean energy? Why do we continually, have the oil industry, pumping out a bunch of toxins and waste when we know, and they know they could make the same amount of money? It's really it's disrupting a system. So a lot of these big companies, they work on these 10-year tracks. So for instance, just in Seattle, the mayor said that by 2030, pickup ride shares, things like Uber, need to be all electric. Why 2030? It's because these industries have to prepare for these changes. It's not that it couldn't be done almost immediately. It's just it might limit the people out there, in the short term. They would all have to, people would have to rush and buy a new car. They have to put money into the technology that they believe in. And the truth is that I think that most of these people, even though most people are good, they're good people, they put profits over our environment and our health.
Yeah, and maybe it's also
short-term profits. You can say long-term profits. If we treat aging, they're going to have more money than they could deal with, but it has an upfront cost.
Yeah. So how long do you think it'll take then before gene therapy becomes mainstream?
Well, in my life, it already is.
Yeah, in your world. But for most of us, we don't have access to this, or we don't even know about it.
Well, that's why, every day a goal is to learn something every day. And everyone who's listening today is learning something new with us, that gene therapy is a thing, that it is out there, that there are several regulated gene therapies now, and more are coming. And more companies are developing gene therapies to treat complex disease rather than, monogenic diseases that only affect very few people on the planet. And I think that now is the time to read about it and get interested in it. So we're looking at data from a company called Integrative Health Systems, who are doing human studies now. If we have a great success, what we'll do is we'll translate that technology, we'll pay for the licensing of that technology, we'll bring it to BioViva, and we'll start running it for a drug. Right now, the US FDA does not consider aging a disease. Therefore, we can't run it for aging. So we have to think of a age-related disorder that it will treat, and one that we'll have success in. And then it will take between 8 and 15 years to get to anyone. And then let's put things into perspective. More than, because it grows year by year, but more than 41 million people die every year of aging. So this is why we are happy to also be coordinating with companies that do medical tourism. So you may have 8 or 15 years, you certainly look like it, but there are people who might be listening today that only have a matter of months, right? Or they might only have a few years, and we really can't tell. So the power of translating medicine more quickly, this platform that we're working with, that we're helping to build, is something that we hope that we can even get the regulatory system in the USA to start using. We should be using these drugs right now in the United States with everyone who qualifies. We should set the protocol, we should set the cohort, we should say, if you really need a drug right now, that these drugs should be used in those people. And we could expedite this really by decades, because like I said, we would have to run the drug for one indication and get approval for one indication, 8 to 15 years for one indication. And the estimated cost is $2.4 billion.
Okay, that's too much.
And then we'd have to run it for another indication, and then we'd have to run it for another indication. And we're just making drugs wrong. So drugs, yeah, they should be as safe as possible before they're used in massive populations. But there is really no such thing right now as a safe drug. And so we need to get the regulatory system to ease the cost of doing business. We need to get the regulatory system to start looking at an expedited route. This platform for testing drugs, again, right here in the US, right there in the UK, right there in Spain, where all the people are sitting who are on this call, right there in Russia, we can create the blueprint for expediting human data. Because that's the difference. So we just did a study at Rutgers. Andres knows about this. He's been helping us work on the paper. But we increased the lifespan of mice yet again by using telomerase. So, hey, great. The reason we did it is because we're looking at a new gene therapy delivery method that can deliver multiple genes at one time. So we are very, very interested in making sure that you get all the genes you need in one treatment in the future. And that's kind of a differentiation factor with our company. But we went ahead and used a gene that we could do a reproducible outcome on to prove that the technology worked. And, there we did it again. Mice are living longer, humans are not.
So it seems to me then, when the FDA approves aging as a disease, then things would be expedited faster, or no?
It'll help a lot, because it will get research funded. It will help us look at what's called multiple mortalities, so we can treat a myriad of aging symptoms at the same time, rather than looking to treat towards one disease, which, like I said, is just a symptom of aging. I have been just floored. In the last year, a couple of universities in the United States and one outside of the United States just opened departments in their biology units that are just streamlined for aging. So, you know, they're getting it at basic research. We're getting it here in, you know, the biotech space, the translational engine of biotech, which is cellular technology. It's different than pharmacology, to humans, that this is where we need to go. We just need to get, you know, the thumbs up from the community. The world at large needs to demand this type of technology, and then the regulatory systems will change.
Okay, so we're going to work on that, spreading the word. Everybody who's here, everybody who's listening, make sure you do this and spread the word because it is so vital. I'm thinking of someone who, imagine, has a parent or has Alzheimer's, for example, and they are desperate and they hear about gene therapy. And so what are the steps they do? Because I saw some of your videos and you were doing, and you went to clinic, you had an injection, because it's an injection, and you talk about vectors. So maybe you can explain a little bit how the therapy works and what it is. Do you feel anything, and what changes do people see? What have you seen? And it is, if you know of any, either Alzheimer's patients who've gone through gene therapy or other very serious disease.
Well, so we did do an Alzheimer's or a dementia, a general dementia study. Most of the patients had Alzheimer's last summer. And we are going to have a paper come out in the next couple months of the changes that we saw. And then we're probably going to have another study coming up with a different route of delivery for the same gene therapy to see if we can get a different response. So, I mean, you know, that's really, so what we're really talking about, I mean, what I am mostly is a patient advocate. You know, how do patients get access to technology who need it? And so what is gene therapy? You've got there's a few things going on there. So if you had dementia, what do you do, and what is gene therapy? So let's just say, okay, I've been diagnosed with dementia, and then we'll get into what gene therapy is. I've been diagnosed with dementia. I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Okay, I've had some brain imaging done, and I've you know, met with my doctor, and I have a succinct diagnosis. There are a couple of small molecule drugs that can slow the progression in the earliest stages, and then I know that it's pretty much downhill from there. So now I'm seeking out information. I want to find something that I'm not going to lose my personhood. This is a very, very serious disease. I lost both of my grandmothers to it. So then, you know, I look into gene therapy, and I find this company that's offering technology, and maybe they have a study that I can enter, or maybe it's you know, something that I need to talk to a doctor and see if I qualify, and there's costs associated. So what can I expect as a person? You know, what is gene therapy? I know nothing about it. Well, that team who you're working with needs to educate you on what the technology is. The doctor, of course, is going to make sure that the benefits or the potential benefits outweigh the risks. We have to understand that there is no cure for Alzheimer's that's known, and that you're now participating in experimental medicine that may or may not work for your condition. Then you need to understand what gene therapy is. So in gene therapy, we use a vector to deliver functional copies of a gene that will benefit the cells and benefit the outcome of the disease. So what is a vector? So there are several ways. So, you know, here's a really exciting thing. You know, over 1 billion people will participate in their first gene therapy this year by taking the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine. Those are short-term gene therapies. They are mRNA, messenger RNA, and they'll only last in your body for a couple of days, long enough to elicit an immune response to a spike protein, which would mimic COVID-19. So then So mRNA is a very short acting gene therapy. Then if you want a longer acting gene therapy, you do RNA, and those gene therapies can last about 30 days. Now, if you want a long-term expression, maybe the lifetime of the cell, in some cases, maybe the lifetime of the organism, depending on how the gene therapy is given, you use DNA. And DNA is going to upregulate the expression of the gene for the long term. But it has to be, in order to do that, it has to be delivered to the nucleus. So in the case of the Pfizer and the Moderna, they're using a liposome. It only needs to be there for a couple days so they can put it in what's called the cytoplasm, right inside the cell wall. And then it uses the machinery of your cells to make the spike protein. When we're trying to do a longer acting gene therapy, we need to get it into the nucleus. And here we get into a really interesting area. What can get it there? Well, what are really good at getting genes into the nucleus are viruses. And so everyone's gonna be like, oh no, viruses. But these viruses can't get you sick. They can't replicate. What they can do is we use part of the shell of the virus to communicate with the cell that says, knock, knock, let me in. What are viruses really good getting into your cells? And then it says, knock, knock, let me into the nucleus as well, something that these liposomes are not doing. And then when it gets in there, it drops the gene and leaves. So then you just kind of pee out those capsids, they're called, and you're left with the functional copy of a therapeutic gene that then makes your cell healthier. So what people need to understand then is what that looks like and what that's going to feel like. So I have dementia and I want to go to participate in a gene therapy, and now I understand that vectors are going to deliver a therapeutic gene to my cells. But what am I going to experience? So I'm going to experience, going to a clinic, meeting with a doctor. I may stay in a hospital for a couple of days, depending on the treatment. And I'm going to take immune suppressants, something that's going to lower my immune system so that my immune system doesn't attack this new therapeutic gene. And then I'm going to have probably an IV given to me that is going to be full of billions, quadrillions of these little vectors that are delivering a therapeutic gene. And I'm essentially not going to feel anything. I'm probably just going to sit through the process. It's going to feel like getting an IV. And then I'm going to take immune suppressants for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And that's never fun. Immunosuppressants have some minor side effects. Generally, you don't sleep as well, and you might be really hungry during that time, which can actually be beneficial to your gene therapies anyway. So not too bad. And then I'm going to get on to my life. And then over the next 3 to 6 months, I may start to feel my muscle mass increasing, especially with working out. I may have diminished pain in my body. I may or may not. This is where the whole experiment comes in. At that point, you are a guinea pig for the outcomes. But I know as far as integrative health systems, they've had no negative outcomes. And so, and it's not anticipated. That's why they're using genes that have been harnessed for over a decade in a myriad of studies where there aren't negative side effects. I mean, that's the beauty of the medicine. That's the difference between the small molecule damaging your liver, hurting your kidneys, and having a side effect of maybe lowering your cholesterol levels, and gene therapy that's just upregulating a protein that's beneficial. I mean, if anything, you should feel less. You should feel, the hope is that you would feel less aches and pains. You would feel more functional. You would feel less limited in your body movement. And in the case of the Follistatin, you would have increased muscle mass.
So actually getting this may bring a lot of other positive side effects.
Yeah.
rather than negative side effects. So if it's just
Yeah.
upregulating a lot of other things.
You shouldn't have the negative side effects. I mean, that's the whole idea of gene therapy is targeting exactly what you need. And just to put things in perspective, like, so why would somebody choose to increase their muscle mass? Sarcopenia is a killer. People die of frailty, they fall down and break their hips. And it just so happens that when you increase muscle mass in animal models, they live longer. So there's some interesting positive side effects to just doing something so simple as muscle mass increase.
Actually, it is a lot more important than people think. I'm doing my master's in gerontology now, and we talk about frailty as well, and how I think it was like 7% of the people in population are frail and actually have falls. And it was another really big number, and I can't remember, don't quote me on this, it was maybe 50% or more that die within a year or two of having a fall due to frailty. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember being impressed, thinking, oh wow, that's a big one. And they die either because of some issues because of the fall or because of the treatments that they get. So frailty is a big one. You'd think it's not, but it actually is. So
it's really, really big. So frailty, actually, it kills about 6% of the population, and most of the population, almost all of it, except for really rare cases and some gene knockout persons, people who don't have like myostatin genes and things like that, everyone gets frailty, sarcopenia to some extent. You lose muscle mass after the age of 35 quite significantly by about 1% a year. And like you said, it leads to some pretty catastrophic outcomes.
Yeah, no. And one question about the gene therapy, you said that you're injecting a gene, so that's in a vector, but where does this gene come from? Is this fabricated? Is this harvested from some other animal or human? Where does this gene come from, and how do you know that's the one that's going to help? That's the one that you need.
That's a good question. People ask that all the time. They're like, wait a minute, is this a synthetic? So we don't do anything in synthetic biology, which is, like sort of like a new form of, like a brand new gene. That could be dangerous. These are human genes, and the sequences come from human gene banks. So they are the basic functional copy of a gene, and then it is cultured out in cell culture to a magnitude that can be used in gene therapy.
Okay, a gene bank. That sounds really interesting. Who is in charge of this bank, and like, is that what is that all about? Like, you just go in there, I want to donate my genes. I got pretty good genes, somebody saved, so I could donate. Do I get paid for that? What's going on?
No. They're the known sequences of the genes that are, so there, you can Google it. There are companies that keep, the pristine sequences of healthy functional copies of genes. So right now,
where do they get them from?
Well, I imagine they originally come from, a pristine source of that specific gene, right?
So, and like, then Elena will go there, give a couple of genes, and
we're all good. Get a lot of plasmids made. Plasmids are just, the loose genes. They just have very little uptake into your cells. So yeah, you gotta go Google it. There are gene banks that have, the pristine copies of these genes, and then gene therapy just stems down from that.
That's okay. That's a whole other business, a whole other field. I'm going to definitely Google it, because that just sounds amazing. So I kind of get it now. So if you have a disease or an issue and you're really desperate, obviously you got to, I imagine a lot of people, if you've got very few years to live or months, then you would probably say, what have I got to lose? I'm dying anyways. So this is my opinion. Maybe other people would be different, but that's what I would say. But so now people go in there, they get their therapy, and you explain some of the things that they're looking at. And in terms of dementia, because I'm going to then later ask you about your own gene therapy, because you were not in a disease state when you did this, at least not that I know of, and then you had some benefits, or not. But if somebody's having dementia, do they start to recover their memory, or what kind of cognitive functions are they seeing, and by when?
That is what we're studying right now. And so in May, you should see a paper come out from us about that. We're waiting on the follow-up brain images. I believe that a cognitive test is done on all of these patients every 2 weeks. And this is where we'll be talking about what we did see, and then we'll look at a different administration of the gene therapy to see if there are even further benefits that we can get. So you're going to have to hang tight for that. And I'm so sorry, I got a call through here because it's actually our research and development, and I'm just going to delay that by 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, thanks for letting me know. So I know it's been an hour already, and I have so many questions still.
No, please. And I think that I missed your last one as that was coming through, because I thought it was really important.
What did I ask? I can't even remember. I have the ApoE4 gene, so I mean, if anybody remembers, please remind me. But yeah, no, it was more the cognitive function. I wanted to see, what are the results so far? What are you seeing? But I guess we're going to have to wait for that paper to come out.
Oh yeah, and then as far as my own blood work, we saw a reduction in triglycerides, which should mean better heart health. We saw across the board, we see lowering HbA1cs, which is basically a measure of blood glucose over a period of time, and how much your blood sugar levels are damaging your cells. And so we see lower blood glucose, which should be beneficial to diseases like type 2 diabetes. We saw increased muscle mass. We continue to see that. I'm due for some new MRIs. We saw increase in telomere length. So my average telomere length increased. The test that I got back from 2020, it also showed a small increase. And so we'll watch that and see if there's a limit. We also looked at how to look at a telomere test. So if you're looking at something that shows you the average length of long telomeres and the short telomeres, what that might mean for gene therapy. For instance, gene therapy today cannot target every cell in the body. And so for something like Follistatin, increasing your muscle mass, that's okay, because that protein is shared in the blood, meaning we don't have to target every cell in the body to have an increase in muscle mass systemically. But with something like telomerase, we need to get it in every cell of the body. So we might find that there are still some shorter telomeres associated with the cells that were not treated or not affected by the gene therapy. But then the longer telomeres are kind of more what we're interested in, and the average length overall. So it helps us sort of sort out how the technology is working, what sort of percentage of coverage that it's giving, and what we can hope to develop as far as better technology and better delivery methods for the future. And
one question about your own experiment. So I'm a little bit confused. I know I saw some videos of you, it was quite a while ago. What year did you do your gene therapy, and have you done multiple sessions? And what are the latest, there's a question here about the latest results of biological age.
Yeah, so I did my gene therapy, excuse me, I did my gene therapy in 2015. And since then, in 2020, I tried the Klotho and the PGC-1alpha as well. And so
what are those for?
Oh yeah, so we haven't talked about this. So Klotho is a gene that's also associated with extending lifespans. It is associated with protection against cardiovascular disease and chronic kidney disease. Our hope is to use it in combination with one of the other genes to see if we can reverse chronic kidney disease. It's also associated with the protection against dementia, cognitive decline. So it is pretty beneficial systemically. It extends lifespan of animals. It protects against some of the big killers. And we're pretty excited about that. So for instance, for just one use case, if chronic kidney disease is just a magnitude of massive disease. Okay, so that's something that we'd really like to affect with a gene therapy. But if you look at dementia, because we've been talking a lot about dementia, upon autopsy, some people who appear to have had a good dose of Alzheimer's, not that there's such thing, but have had Alzheimer's but didn't suffer from cognitive decline, generally have a upregulated gene called Klotho. And so it's protecting them from the cognitive decline regardless of the disease. So in mice, when injected with the Klotho protein, they were 20% more intelligent within an hour. And so this is kind of technology that could help buffer and supplement the type of age reversal technologies by protecting the system and increasing function of both the brain and cellularly throughout the body. So we're really excited about that. And then there's another one called PGC-1alpha. It is it helps with mitochondrial biogenesis. And so it could take a cell that has, really some unhealthy mitochondria, which your mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. They're what is giving you energy. And it essentially makes the mitochondria more robust, more functional copies of mitochondria in the cell. And therefore the cell can clean up a bunch of cellular damage. It's a gene that's upregulated when you work out, actually. So your friend goes and they get on a workout regimen for a couple months, and you go and you see them and you're like, wow, you look fantastic. It's one of the genes behind that. When it's upregulated, it tends to start to translate white fat towards brown fat, more easily used energy, and it might be a really beneficial gene therapy for things like gross obesity.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I've been listening to a book called The Fat Switch, and there's a really great chapter about that. And definitely, the more mitochondria you have and the better functioning they are, well, you're going to feel more energy and you're going to go work out more. And so it's just a great cycle that's get started. So so your first gene therapy was when you were about 45, 44, and you've seen some great results so far. And you keep monitoring that, or do you?
Oh yeah, I'm a
progression
guinea pig forever for the rest of my life. So that was one thing that you had asked that probably I wasn't sick. So I didn't have a diagnosis, one that you might get from a doctor, like heart disease or chronic kidney disease or anything like that. But by 45, we have a lot of cellular damage. In your 20s, they can find a decent amount of cellular damage, and some people already have atherosclerotic plaques, and some people, they can already start now with these really sensitive diagnostics, a suggestion of potential Alzheimer's or dementia. So the accumulation of damage happens before we're born. We're already accumulating a certain amount of damage. It's kind of overlooked during development because we think of that as still growing. We don't think of that as, detrimental things that could be happening to the cell and cellular communications that may not, they are more optimal than they are now. But the future human stays in homeostasis, right? The future human, our perfect design is to have as much diversity on the planet as we have today, if not more, but bodies that regenerate faster than they degenerate. So by the time you're 45, you have a good deal of damage. And at that point, we, especially historically, we just really didn't have the proper biomarkers to look at that. And those are the things that are changing now. We now have epigenetic clocks. We have immune system clocks like glycanage. We have the ability to look at blood levels of senescent cells and NAD. We didn't have that before. And these tests will just grow, and they will supersede sort of what we look at now, which is, you know, mostly blood levels, which are important, but they're kind of like a snapshot in time. Your blood levels may change throughout the day depending on what you eat, and we tend to do these fasting blood levels that may or may not be associated with our overall health. And so the testing is getting better than it was then. But I think that what we'll find in the future is that even though we'll start treating older people with these type of gene therapies now, people who have a greater need so that the benefits outweigh the risks. In the future, these will be used much like immunizations in very young age to ensure that people don't get sick and accumulate the damage that they do over time, as they do now.
I want to go into the testing because you know a lot about testing for this stuff. And before we do, I just want to answer a couple of questions that were here. There was a question asking for, they want to promote your work and they need more data, newer data too. So they're looking for your coming paper with Rutgers, I believe.
Yes, yeah. So that's going to be really exciting for a lot of people. It has some amazing co-authors who worked on the technology with us, and who really believe in what we did and are excited about the future of the company. And so stay tuned, stay with us. We thought that we would have the paper published actually by this time, but the teams got so excited about it that other groups came in and said, we want to help with some testing around this. We want to actually make it even more complete. So we have a couple tests that are still out, and then we'll go through editing and have the paper out. So I can't tell you exactly when that's going to be, but I can say that it will be a hallmark paper in aging, and hopefully have a big impact on this area of research.
That's exciting. Is that going to include the biological age test that Magdalena's asking about?
Now, so the Rutgers paper is an animal study, a non-human animal study.
Oh, sorry.
And so it's a murine model, it's mice. But the human data, so the dementia study will come out probably in May or June. And then we will start to roll out one study after another after that. And then my data, I believe it was all available up until a certain point until we switched websites, and you know, we would be committed to getting some of that back up. But we have just a very different website design now because we're selling these aging associated products that help people actually understand their biological age better. So we don't have a system for that, and we've vastly folded into being even more of a private company than before. But we will be getting out a myriad of human data over time, and even mine, where we've just kind of gone back to scratch because I've participated in more therapeutics. So now it's kind of like you have to start over with the post-testing.
So, okay, we only got about 10, 15 minutes left, and I'm going to have to let you go. So I really want you to cover the testing. You have kits on your website. So people are so confused about DNA testing. They heard about 23andMe. Should they do it? No, they don't do it. How do you read it? What are you offering, and what are you finding? Because I love everything, all the tests you have. I want all of them and see exactly where I am. And do you need to do them frequently? You do them once and it's finished. What have you got there?
So we've got a couple of things. On the backbone of the whole system, we have what's called the BioKeeper, and it's a great place to store all of your data, especially if you want to work with us to help solve aging. So let's say that you've gone somewhere and you've done your DNA test, and you've done your microbiome test, and you've done your epigenetic test. It's a great place to store everything. And if you choose to, you can share your data with us, and it helps us look at what aging actually is over time to make better better biomarkers. Your genome, we don't offer a genome kit anymore. We used to. We just suggest that, you know, you go get a whole genome, at least 30-time genome at, you know, the company of your choice. It's kind of static. Okay, so your genome, most of what they're going to look for is, you know, differences, variations, and similarities between humans. And like you said, you have the APOE4, and that means that you're an increased risk for Alzheimer's. There is some variation of whether or not you will actually get Alzheimer's based on your lifestyle. And that's why we have this BioKeeper. So we want to look at multi-omic data. So just having the gene is one thing, but whether or not you actually become sick with the disease, we hope not. We hope you intervene and you don't ever get sick from it. But if you do, it gives science a better understanding of the relevance of those genes. So let me put your genes into perspective. Your genes are everything when you're born. They you know, help you develop as a strong, healthy person. The middle of your life, a lot of it depends on your lifestyle. So healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, and healthy exercise. And then in your end of your life, your genes are everything again. They're why you die. So, you know, putting that into perspective for you kind of gives you the ability to see that, you know, a lot of people can sort of stream through the middle of their life and they'll say, well, the key to disease is diet and exercise. But that's not really long-term thinking. The key to disease is really your genes. So knowing your genes now is a great educational process. It gives you the ability to take a look at them, see what your greater risks are, to intervene the best you can today, and then to educate yourself for those next steps in gene therapy tomorrow. So everyone should get their genome run.
Is BioKeeper then a DNA test?
No, BioKeeper is just a place to store your data. Think of it as like Dropbox for your health data, for your multi-omic data. Then as far as kits, now what we offer is we offer Timekeeper, which is an epigenetic kit. And a lot of people think of that as being like a DNA kit, but it's really how your DNA is, whether it's active or not. It's called methylation. And so it's a way to look at your biological age by the expression of your genes. And it's considered the most accurate biological clock. So it's why you might have a whole room of 65-year-olds and a couple of them won't live past a year. And some of them will go on to be super centenarians, meaning over 110 years old. Is how are they biologically aging and what is their biological age? So if your chronological age is 45, but your biological age is 65, then you have a 20-year accelerated aging process. And you know, you may want to intervene, whether that's the best you can with diet and exercise or start to look at genetics. And then we also offer GlycanAge, which looks at your immune system. And it is a really cool, powerful kit that, I mean, your immune system, so there's a bunch of downstream effects of aging. There's inflammation, there's a dysfunctional immune system, and you know, several downstream effects that we can talk about, but your immune system is a really important part of living a long time and how healthy it is. And of course, we would say that it is related to immune senescence, which is, why do more people die of COVID who are older? Immune senescence is a real thing. They don't have, when a virus attacks you, you need a lot of cellular division in your immune system in order to overcome that disease. And if your telomeres are short, you just really don't have that. You don't have the the benefit of being able to get on top of certain diseases. But this looks at the glycolysis on your red blood cells. And actually that's kind of, think of that as like sugars attached to your red blood cells. And it is a really important indicator of your age of your immune system. And then outside of that, we're offering the Genfinity blood tests. It's the first senescent cell blood test in the world. It looks at your senescent load based on the output of those senescent cells, the type of cellular debris that they put out, maybe cytokine response. We're looking at NAD. NAD is NAD is like the currency of everything in your cells. You know, you can't make ATP or anything without a good amount of NAD. And we have ability to look at the levels there. And then some of the other blood tests are just around there. They're your oxidative stress and other things happening at the cellular level. And these tests are just, they're going to do nothing but get better. They're going to get more accurate. They're going to get better. And they're going to be, you know, hopefully the tests of the future, the tests that doctors actually use to analyze, you know, your mortality risk. Mm-hmm. Rather than the traditional methods or along with the traditional methods.
These are amazing tests that I haven't seen around very much at all. But the idea that I think I understand that also these tests that you're sharing on your website are actually, these are what you normally use in a lab. This is not just little thing, you know, a kit you take it home and I don't know, I know maybe you take it at home, but they're quite sophisticated. Is that right?
Yeah, they are. So they're done at this high level of research grade. So our epigenetic kit, you know, it's the epic array system. It's looking at the most points. It's looking at almost a million points of methylation. We're looking now to carry a microbiome kit that's also research grade. They're more expensive. They have more detailed information, and they will give us the ability to see, because we also do bioinformatics with the patients that go through integrative health systems. They'll give us the ability to have the first glimpses at the future and what the future distribution of these different outcomes will look like.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So can anybody go to your site and order this kit, and will they be able to read it and understand it, or they need their doctor to interpret it?
Oh no, they can go and they can get it, and we will be building insights. But for instance, like your biological age on these tests, I think you'll understand that. If there's anything we understand, it's numbers, and that will be more succinctly understandable to people. And you know, the readouts will get better with the actionability of things that you can do around them, but they're ready to be viewed now.
Oh, that's so great. And do you send them in an email? Do you send them by mail? How does somebody get this data?
You get them in your BioKeeper. So you sign up for an account, and right now the BioKeeper is free for the first year, and your results will upload into the BioKeeper, and it's all secure. It's an encrypted system, so you know your data is your data.
Oh my gosh.
And you can download it. That's another differentiation factor, is you can download all of your raw data. Anything that that we offer specifically, like the Timekeeper, you can download that data, so it's yours to keep.
Super interesting. I know a lot of people out there are taking NAD boosters, for example, but it would be so useful to know where is your NAD. Like I'm guessing I have pretty good NAD because I'm quite energetic and I feel like I have the mitochondria function, but maybe I'm not, or I could watch it degrade. So, but I don't really know unless I tested it. So then I would go, is my supplement working or not working? Whatever it is that you're doing, or whatever from the therapeutic measures you're taking to boost your NAD, it's a great idea. I've never seen that before either. So I know you have to go, and I have like 1,000,001 other questions, and I'm so sorry, but I know that there's a couple other questions here too that people are asking, is just to get them ahead of me. Are there any topical skin cream or other delivery from telomere length not included TA65 or removal of senescent cells? Olga asks.
I don't think that anything works like the gene therapy. One of the things that we'd like to test with the gene therapy is, I mean, number one, if you do a gene therapy, you don't look younger. It really didn't work because you're still dying of some functional aging. If we can target everything but your skin, we're still in trouble, right? We are looking to develop a gene therapy that is more liposomal based. That would be something that a doctor would administer probably under your dermis. And we will see where that development goes in the future. I don't think that, I mean, Bill Andrews is one of our advisors, and he doesn't seem positive at all on any of the pill-based activators of telomerase or skin creams. So I can only go on his suggestion. He would say no. As far as senescent cell removers, I love women-run companies, and I know that there is a new company called OneSkin, and that supposedly has some effect on your senescent cells. And I think that that's some research and a product worth looking into. I do believe that there's definitely a future for small molecule approach to senescent cell removal. You don't want to remove all of them because they do have some benefits to your overall health and especially wound healing, but that those will be one small molecule approach that will only get better, and that I would definitely get behind once they have those sorted out.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that. So before I let you go, if you could meet your 20-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh boy, if you knew my 20-year-old self, I would have said, get busy. I would have gotten busy a long time ago. There is really no time to waste. You're here to contribute. You're here to be part of something bigger with the world. And I just would have definitely told myself, you better get focused. I could have done a lot more if I would have started then.
But since you are still young and you will live a long time, there is still plenty of time. What can we do, as a listener or any of the viewers here, what can we do to help you on your mission?
Well, you can share information, and you can be uncomfortable. For instance, I don't know if I will live a long time. We would hope that we do, and in the long time that we live, we do many, many great things that help humans live better and healthier. So share information, find your purpose. Find something that you love to do that'll have a big impact in the world, because that will help me too. When you create something or make something that makes the world a better place, we all benefit from that. And be uncomfortable. Think about your 85-year-old self. Think about the children who are dying today. Think about, the over 100,000 people who will die of aging today. Think about their last moments and their thoughts, and think about what you can do to change that, because it's coming for you. I cannot sugarcoat this. I cannot solve this problem on my own. We need all hands on deck. This is a magnitude of a problem that you need to step into your discomfort to ensure that you work to solve these problems. It's a very difficult conversation to have. People are very resistant to hearing how they're going to die. And we have spent 7 years now studying how you are going to die, and not one scenario is a beautiful scenario. So we should work to make a better place on this planet together. And you can only do that by being real.
Exactly. I love that. So yes, seek discomfort. Usually those difficult conversations are the ones that we need to have the most. So thank you so much. I want to share a little bit where people can find more information about you. But before we do that, I know you had some great recommendations. If somebody wants to know more about gene science, do you have any books or websites or resources that they can go to learn more?
Oh, there are so many really cool books. So if you're a person who likes kind of like, you know, what the future might look like, Homo sapiens and Homo Deus were two really great books walking you through human history to the future. The Cure is in the Code was a fantastic book that was written that expresses the distress of how the regulatory system isn't ready for this technology. And this book was written like in 2015 or something. So it was very relevant at the time and still is relevant. The Life of the Cell, Genes, the Red Queen, you know, going and learning about genes and how they actually, you know, impact our lives, our personalities, you know, what we look like, who we become, and the Sports Gene. There's a beautiful book. A lot of people ask me, you know, is it unethical to increase people's sports ability? Is that unfair? Well, people are born every day that have an increased ability over you. Is that fair? So, you know, going and learning about your own limitations, again, going into the uncomfortable, you know, the musical geniuses compared to everyone else. What's the difference? Should everybody have the equity of having the ability to do that and the agency and autonomy to decide for themselves, or should the government decide for you? So, you know, there are a lot of really great reading experiences to learn more about this technology.
That's great. I'm going to send everyone who's here, anyone who's registered here, I have your email, so I will send you a list of all these books, and I will send you the link of biovivascience.com. That's BioViva-science.com, and that's where you can find the kits, like the BioKeeper, the Timekeeper, the Glycanage, all of these really cool products. And I think there's on sale now or something, so that's actually not a bad time to go and check it out. And if you want to connect with Liz and BioViva, check out her YouTube videos and the YouTube videos of the company. I will send that to you in the email, but it's a long letter here, but I think if you just Google on YouTube BioViva, B-I-O-V-I-V-A, you should find that. You can also email them at info@bioviva-science.com. On Facebook, you're also there, BioViva Sciences. No dash in between. Twitter, the same thing, BioViva Science without the S. And on the website, there's a website you should check out. This is where you mentioned this before, integratedhealthsystems.com. So all of these are great resources, bioviva-science.com. You probably find lots of great stuff there. So I'm going to let you go, get back to work. And thank you so much, everyone who's been here and stayed on for the whole call. And thank you so much, Liz, for your time. I appreciate it. I know you are a busy person. So it's a real treat to have you on, and I'm just so grateful for that and your time.
Thanks, Zora. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for anyone who listened this long, because it's a pretty complex situation when you're talking about genetics, and it was really fantastic seeing everyone. Thanks, Andres and Magda and Jose. Hey, Death of Death, go get his book. Start reading. I did a review of that book. I mean, it's great. I mean, look at all of these great, brilliant minds out here trying to be part of something that makes the world better for you. David Kekich said something cool one time. He said, even if you don't have a friend, you can look to longevity science to find all your best friends. They're people who love people, and they're spending their life to do something good for you. So, you know, these are all really good people. Reach out to them. They're great.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you again because I do have about 50 more questions for you.
Oh, I know. The only thing I regret is that I didn't make it more simple, because I think that, you know, we could have, we should have 5 of these, and we can break down each area, make it as simple as possible, so that people can understand it and have time for questions, because questions are where really all of the good information comes, because that's my favorite spot is, you know, the questions that get me thinking. And often, you know, we've been here for a while. We have some answers, and in some places they spur new interest.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll do just a Q&A next time. So I will be in touch. We'll have to schedule another call and get out all of those questions and share more. But you did a great job in breaking down the science. I think you did really, really well. I think it's very understandable, bite-sized chunks. But yeah, we could definitely dive in deeper, and hopefully there'll be a next time.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
You.